So first things first, that around 12 or 13 questions are asked in section A. 10 marker question होते हैं सब, और आपको 150 words में करना होता है. So whatever question is of 10 marks, we have to answer that question in 7 minutes and not more than that. So this is the most tricky part with respect to ethics section answer rating. Because questions now are not straight from the book. Questions are very analytical and questions are seldom theoretical. So to answer analytical questions, you first have to read the question very thoroughly. Then you have to understand the question very thoroughly. What is the demand of the question? What is it trying to say? Why this particular question is asked in ethics and not in another GS paper? And then in the remaining time, that is maybe in 6 minutes, you have to answer this 10 marker question. So it is not easy. Stop drawing all this. Who is drawing this? You're aspiring bureaucrat, so please behave. ठीक है. सो आंसर स्ट्रक्चर क्या होता है? सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट एस्पेक्ट सेक्शन है आंसर राइटिंग का हो गया आंसर स्ट्रक्चर. जैसे अगर आपने प्रीवियस कोई सेक्शंस अटेंड करे हो कभी, तो in that also I have explained that answer structure is the most important thing, not only for GS1, GS2 optional or essay, for every subject. So for ethics, the answer structure is important because there is a tendency that you will digress from the demand of the question and you will digress from the main dimensions of the question. That is why I have written here that you can write answer both in para and points, but then I will prefer an answer to be written in points, because what happens with points is that you do not digress from the question and you give yourself enough chance to write multiple dimensions in a question if the answer is written in points. What will happen if you write answer in paragraph is that you will flow with the flow. You won't come up with many dimensions, and that answer will become view based rather than dimension based, and then chances are high that you won't score much in such a question. So in introduction, what we have to do is, it is very basic that whatever keyword is mentioned in question, you have to identify that. You have to identify from which chapter this particular question has been asked, from which chapter of syllabus this question can be linked, and accordingly you have to define the keyword. And further, as I'll tell you in the next slide, that you have to use those keywords in your answer which relate to that particular question or relate to that particular chapter or theory or whatever. So defining keywords is very important. For that, what you can do is go through the syllabus or go through any book, go through my book or any other book. Just pick up various keywords present in the book and make definition of each. So if there are 50, 60, 70, 80 keywords in book, make one-liner or two-liner definitions of each and just understand them. There is no need to mug up all the definitions, because you can write definitions in your own words. There is no necessity to write mugged up definitions in ethics paper. Then answer body, again I have written you can write in points or para, but it is very tough to write ethics answer in points. But train your mind that you will write answer in points only, then only you will be able to write answer in points. Otherwise, trust me, 9 out of 10 answers you will write in paragraph. But if you have the mindset that you have to write the answer in points, if you have it in back of your mind, then it is very much possible to write ethics answer in points. Theory. So one very common mistake that people make is, as I have told till now, that you have to write keywords and all, but people tend to overdo it. So if you overdo theory, what will happen is that your answers will become mechanical. Your answers will look like theoretical, and they will be far from application based, far from example based, and then your score comes down in ethics. If you have seen trends of last 4-5 years, or maybe since 2013 when ethics paper was introduced, you will find that in any given year there are two ranges of marks in ethics. Some people score 100 plus and others are stuck in range of 75 to 80. Now, how come you can have two different range? So my analysis of it is that maybe answers of these people are application based, example based. Keywords are written, but then they don't overdo it. And answer of these people are mechanical, theoretical. There are lesser examples, there are lesser diagrams, there are lesser quotes, there are just theories and thinkers in this answer. So do not make that mistake. Maximum 20% of your answer should be theoretical, that is including all the keywords that you want to write. Rest of your answer should be example based, GS based, etc. Now coming to examples. So I've already told in the above part the importance of examples. Now there are questions in in ethics paper where the examiner, where the question separately mentions that explain with example. So in such question, always give two examples. And in questions where it is not mentioned about writing example, then mention at least one example. Now focus on at least. Nowhere I am telling you that max you have to write only one example or max only two examples. This is at least. You have to write at least one example in every question. If you are writing two examples in every question, way more better than one example. You are giving yourself more chance to score huge marks in ethics if you are writing two examples. At times I used to write even 3 or 4 examples in every question. So, but it is tough because we have a range of examples. Examples are also limited. So it should not look like that you are writing example just for the sake of it. It should be cohesive with the question, with the demand of the question. Now, some do's and don'ts regarding examples. So firstly, let me tell you the don'ts. Don't write about your friends or your family or school life or college life. uh, I try to avoid it. For once you can write about your family, but then friends, school and college, these are very kiddish sort of examples. These are very unprofessional looking examples. Ethics is one paper where everyone knows 250 marks. There is nothing in ethics paper which you cannot write until and unless it is a very theoretical paper, like it was asked in 2016, where UPSC asked about Weber's bureaucrat. They asked about seven sins theory and John Rawls social justice theory. So it has only happened once in last 8-9 years that a theoretical paper came in ethics. Otherwise, you can attempt all 250 marks question. So if I am an examiner, if I am checking 100 copies a day, and if I'm not finding attractive examples in your copy, and imagine if your copy is copy number 100, and before that all the examples in various copies were relevant, they were professional, so it is natural that I'll give you lesser marks if you are not writing such examples. So example should be such that examiner can relate with it. Examiner cannot relate with your friends. He cannot relate with your school or what happened in your college. For once, he can relate with your family because family is something which you can use in ethics paper. But then these are certain things. If there are certain major events of your life, you can write them in your answers without disclosing your identity, because you have seen this year one of the topper was deducted even 35 marks penalty in her mains exam for various reasons, which reasons are not mentioned by UPSC, but then one of the reason is maybe she had disclosed her identity or something. If you have a certain hobby which you can use in your exams, example, do use that. I used to write many examples from cricket. For example, in 2014 or 15, there was a question on which personality inspires you the most. So I wrote about MS Dhoni in that question. Or in other questions also, I have time and again used cricket to my advantage. There are other sports as well, and if you like some other sports, say tennis. So how can you make example from this is like in javelin, Neeraj Chopra has consistently performed and outperformed himself event after event. In Olympics, he threw something 86 point something. Then he crossed 88. Then he recently crossed 89 barrier. So it shows you the dedication and hard work and perseverance of the guy, and it also shows you his humility, that he is not over the moon because of his continuous success, but he is continuously striving for the best. So these are the sort of examples which you can make from sports and write in your ethics answers. This I used to do, but I am not sure in the current scenario whether you can include these three things or not, because UPSC has become very strict of late with respect to reveal penalty marks against revealing your identity. So what I used to do was, in the first question itself, I used to write example like last year when I was attending the UPSC medical. I used to write this line in the first question itself. So what this tells you, that this particular aspirant has given interview, then only he is attending the medical. So, and after that, I used to write something in the example. This is just to tell the examiner that I have experience, I have prior experience, and if there is at all a positive bias, I'll take it in rest of my questions, because I have written this thing in the first question itself. But double check, be sure if in current scenario you can write such examples or not, because UPSC has become strict in terms of revealing identity. Uh, I had undergone through police training as well for 3 months, and I used to write examples from that as well. But again, I'm not sure whether this reveals my identity or not, if they count it under penalty or not. So I'm not sure whether you can write such examples now or not. Work X. So work X is very important to write in ethics paper. I used to write from my private sector days. I have worked for 1 year in Accenture Bangalore. So whatever examples I found suitable from that 1 year of work experience, I used to include in my answers. So you can include your work X experience. It will show you it will show the examiner your professional side. The answer won't be kiddish. The examiner would know that, okay, you have a prior work experience and you are using it here to your advantage. Current affairs. This, I think everybody knows about, that using examples from current affairs across the papers and optionals is always advisable. Okay, so these three things are very important: old age, women, and all religions. Now the examiner, I am not generalizing, I am not saying anything uh, uh, unpolitical or uncorrect. Uh, my view is that examiner can be from any age background, examiner can be of any gender, examiner can be of any religion. If you are overdoing one aspect, if you are overdoing examples from one religion, it can go against you. So what I used to do was, I used to have 30-40 uh, list, 30-40 keywords list, which I used to revise just before entering the exam hall. So at the back of the question paper itself, which the question paper that you can take home, I used to write down those 30 keywords. Now this is nowhere cheating, because it is in my mind and I am writing those keywords. I'm not carrying any note, I'm not getting any not carrying any farra with me. So this is all in my mind, I'm just reproducing it on answer sheet. After that, once I have written, say, about Jainism in first example, I'll strike it down. In my entire paper, nowhere you will find Jainism uh, in another example, in another question. Then if in second question I have written about Mahabharat or Gita, I won't write it again. Similarly, if I have written about Sikhism in third question, Islam in fourth question, I won't include these religions or these examples or thinkers in rest of my questions. So with this, two things are happening. I am intentionally covering all religions. I am intentionally focusing on writing examples uh, of old age, because examiner can be uh, a senior citizen, maybe 50 years old, maybe 55 years old. So one or other example on old age can please him as well. Examiner can be a lady as well, of course, so you can write women centric examples. So one thing is there is no monotony. Second is I am covering multiple dimensions in my paper. And of course, third is I'm not generalizing my answers anywhere. So these are three aspects which I'll advise you to use intentionally and very carefully across your ethics paper. Previous year question papers. So for example, I told you that in 2016 paper, there was keyword like 7 sins. So in 2017 mains, which was my fifth and last attempt, I did not attempt for the sixth time. So in that attempt, I wrote 7 sins in one of my examples. In another example, I wrote about Rawls' social justice theory. So this is the way in which you can use the previous year question paper itself to your advantage in form of examples. And last, it is tough, it is very tricky. If some of you have attended my essay session, in that also I told that, for example, in essay, there are 8 topics. And if you are writing, say on topic number 1 and topic number 8, then use rest of the topics in your essay. This I told in the essay session as well. Similarly, in ethics paper, if you just go through the quote based questions, if there are 3 quotes, there are generally 3 quotes every year in ethics paper, use that quote in some or other of your answer. This will definitely tell the examiner that you have presence of mind and you have that X factor in you, and which the examiners are looking for. So this is my detailed analysis regarding do's and don'ts of examples. Keywords. I have already told that I had a list of 30, 40, 50 keywords, which I used to revise just before entering the exam hall. And as I entered the exam hall, the first thing that I did was write those 30, 40 keywords at backside of my question paper. And after using, say, I have used collegiality once, I'll strike it down. If I have used Lok Sangrah once, I'll strike it. Lokhit, then I'll strike it. So this is the way in which you can write multiple keywords in your example. If you are not doing this exercise, what can happen is that, like in GS2 answers, in most of the answers, the keywords that you will find is transparency, accountability, rule of law. These are the 3 keywords favorite of each and every aspirant. And if you are writing 10 answers of GS2, you will find these keywords in 5 different answers. So this happens when you do not have a ready-made list of keywords in your mind. So do this exercise, it will be very beneficial to you. Diagrams. So time and again, I have stressed about drawing diagrams in ethics paper or any other paper. The reason is that it provides X factor. It tells the examiner that you have something unique you to present. If I am an examiner, I have checked already 99 copies, yours is 100. In the previous 99, say 10 have drawn diagrams, and then in your copy, I have found diagrams. Then you are in these 11 peoples out of 100 who have drawn diagrams, who have given something unique. So definitely you will get more marks. For me, one diagram is equal to +1 marks. And across my attempts, I could draw only 7 to 8 diagrams per paper. So that means around 30 diagrams in GS papers. 30 diagrams, even if you are not giving, say, +1, you will give at least 0.5. So 30 diagrams means 15 marks minimum. So 15 marks, the importance of 15 marks is huge. In my 2017 attempt, I could not get into IES just by 12 marks. I could not get into IFS by 2 marks. So importance of 15 marks for you can be whether you are in the final list or again you are writing pre for the next year. So this is very important aspect. Do not miss out on it. The diagrams that you can draw in ethics are hub and spoke diagram or chronological diagram, block diagrams. I'll be discussing some of the answers in coming slides, and there you can see this. You can draw difference between diagrams when say difference is asked between what is how are ethics and religion different, or how are laws and ethics different. So you can draw this tabular diagram, or in similar questions you can draw Venn diagrams as well. So difference, maybe this is ethics, this is law, and the combination of these two is ethics as well as legal. So these are basic types of diagrams that you can draw in ethics paper. Conclusion. So even if you are short of time, even if you are very nervous that whole lot of paper is left, do not leave conclusion. Even after defining keywords, writing answer in points, giving 2, 3, 4 examples, making diagram and all, if you are missing conclusion, then you will get -1. If I was giving you say 5 out of 10 in a particular question, and if you are not writing conclusion, I'll give you 4. म्यूट कर लो यार. ठीक है, तो अगर मैं 5 दे रहा था तुम्हें और तुम्हारा कंक्लूजन नहीं है, देन आई विल डिडक्ट 1 मार्क्स इन दैट 1 मार्क इन दैट क्वेश्चन एंड यू विल गेट 4 and not more than that. So conclusion is very important. Conclusion never fetches you extra mark.
मौसम भी नरम हो गया भाई, मौसम भी नरम हो गया, गर्मी ना रही.
Dinesh, please mute yourself. Sorry.
So if I was giving you 5 out of 10 and you have written conclusion, that does not mean that you will be getting 6. But then if you are not writing it, you will be getting 4. So that is the importance of conclusion, that if you are not writing it, marks will be deducted. Now this is a strategy of Praful Sharma. He scored very decent marks in ethics this year. The main pointers are marked in bold. Like I already told you that define the relevant keyword. So he has also mentioned that. I have told you about diversity of examples. He has also mentioned that. The points, you can see that he has written examples from field of administration, mythology, folklore, technology, sports, cinemas, and real life examples. I think cinema I'll avoid because it is the most fake thing in India. Nothing is more fake in India than Bollywood. So I'll try to avoid it. But then administration based examples are must in paper. Mythology, I've already told you, writing about Mahabharata, Ramayana, Gita. These are very good examples because there are good learnings from these epics which you can write in your paper. Technology based examples I have not tried in any of my answers. It is a new aspect for me as well. Sports I've already told you, and real life examples I've already told you. So next thing that he has told is that this is some show which he used to watch to collect random facts and use in his ethics paper. Now what it tells you is that there is no limit to from where you can collect examples. If you are into certain hobby, use that. If you are watching certain say web series, you can use that, but be very careful while using such things. Essay notes he has shared. I'll be sharing some links with you in the chat box. You can find his notes there. Then for quote-based question, he has specifically told that he used to start with some relevant quote related to that question itself. I also used to do it. I did it in 2014, 2013, and 15. Somewhere I don't know how I lost it in 2017. And in that attempt, I didn't use quotes in quote-based question. I don't know why and how I lost it. So this tells you that even if you are attempting again and again, even if you are a veteran, you need to be on your toes. It's not that you are infallible. You have to practice again and again, so that whatever positives, whatever areas of strengths you had, you do not miss out on them. Lastly, he has discussed that he used to write at least uh, he used to write thinkers in at least 7-8 theoretical questions. I've already told this aspect in first slide of mine, that you have to write thinkers, but then ensure that your answer is not over the top theoretical. So the best way to do that is use thinkers or theories as a passing reference only. For example, if there is a question on abortion, because abortion is in news. I think it was in US that some court barred abortions. So what such question on abortion can definitely come in this year mains. So you have to write ethical implications of the decision of this court. Then what you can do is invoke Kant. Kant says that human should be used as end in itself and not a means towards it. So just write this: as per Kant, humankind is an end in itself and not a means. And in abortion, maybe it is used as a means to achieving certain end and not an end in itself. Hence, according to Kant, abortions are unethical. So this is the way of integrating whatever you want to write with thinker and theory. Nowhere I'll explain further in this answer about the statement that Kant has given. Nowhere I'll mention about Kant at depth. I'll just write it as a passing reference just to link a thinker and theory with my view. So what it does is, now this question becomes a view, this answer becomes a uh, not just my view, but it is backed by thinkers view. So this is the importance of writing thinkers in your questions. And as more and more applied ethics based questions are coming in last 2 or 3 years, have come in last 2 or 3 years, so it becomes very important to invoke thinkers in such questions. Now, this is a strategy of Abhijit Ray, who secured 50 rank this year. And the main points of his strategy are from here. He referred toppers answer copies. This is something that I never did. Maybe I was over the top confident about my own strategy that I never tried to refer answers of other toppers. Even in my first attempt, I did not refer any of the toppers copies for any of the subject. But this is something that I'll advise you, because you will get a good you will get good inputs from topper copies. You will get to know how toppers evolve their structures, what sort of examples they are writing, whether they are writing in points or paragraphs, whether they are writing introduction in every question or not, whether they are writing conclusion in every question or not, and so on. So this is something that you should do. Regarding examples, he has also collected and made his own list of examples. I suggest you to make your own list as well. And just like Praful mentioned that he wrote examples from administrative background, even Abhijit has written the same. The answers are simple, and the important thing that he has mentioned here is regarding keeping track of time. So this I have told you already, that a 10 marker question should be written in max 7 minutes. That means if there are 13 questions of 10 marks, then 13 into 7 is 91 minutes. That is 1.5 hours. So you should have remaining 1.5 hours for 6 case studies questions. That means 90 minutes divided by 6, that is 15 minutes per case study. I used to keep this timeline in my mind for every of my attempt. Still, for the last 2 cases, I had a total of 10 minutes only, perhaps in all of my 5 attempts, all of my 4 mains attempts. So this is something that is very tricky, and you can evolve it, you can develop this habit only by practicing. There is no shortcut to it. Last thing is very important. After that, we'll discuss some questions. That ethics is less about study but more about practice and value addition, because more and more court-based questions, more and more questions on applied ethics are coming in exam. So you have to be on your toes regarding application of theories, application of concepts that you have read in book. Now, this is first question that was asked in 2020 mains, and it is a entirely theoretical question. At the start of session, I told that I'll be giving some theoretical questions, some court-based questions, and some applied ethics questions. So it is a theoretical question. The blunder in this question would be that you don't know the teachings of Buddha. I am sure this is impossible because we study Buddhism and Jainism for pre as well. So I don't think nobody writing mains would not know this answer. The key then becomes is following a proper structure that I have told you previously. So what are the keywords here? Keyword is Buddha or Buddhism. So you have to write about Buddhist ethics in the introduction. Then breaking down the question, as I've told in my previous session as well, it is very important. What teachings of Buddha are most relevant today and why? So if UPSC has mentioned most relevant, it is inherently asking you other teachings as well. This is the main part of question, that you will write at least 2-3 points on most relevant teachings, but then you will write other teachings as well. So this I have written here. Buddha's teachings are summed up by this, this, and this. And then I have come to the main part of the question, that is most relevant teachings are. I have written answer in points. I have written 4 points. Okay, one aspect that I missed discussing is that in a 10 marker question of GS, we generally write 10 points, but then this is not possible in ethics. In ethics, at max, what you can write is 5 points in a question, because questions are very tough and the content is very less. Also, you are not required to write these many points in ethics. 4 or 5 points in one ethics question is more than enough. So I've written 4 points here. The key is usage of examples. So whatever you write in this question, link it with examples. Like I'll read out one point. There is no point in reading out my answers to you. The session is getting recorded. You can read the answers later on, or if you have my book, you can read the answers from there. I'll just tell you the focus areas of my answer structure. So the first point that I've written is universal truth that everything is changing and nothing is permanent find its relevance in everyday life, and especially in present day international relations, wherein geopolitical concerns are ever dynamic and changing. For example, recent Afghanistan crisis. So I have written what I wanted to, and then I have linked it with example. Similarly here, harming living beings is one of the precepts Buddha advises abstinence from. If country like China actually practiced this virtue, COVID-19 crisis would not have originated at first place. So another way of linking recent examples, recent current affair examples in your ethics question. And then I have drawn a diagram. I have written about what are the teachings. I mentioned all the broad teachings here, and then their current relevance in daily life here. And lastly, I have written conclusion. So in this question, you have intro, you have keywords, you have answer in points, then you have two examples, you have a diagram, and you have a conclusion. So the minimum that you will get in this question is 4 out of 10, not less than that. There is no chance that you will get 3 or 3.5 in this question. You will get at least get 4 marks in this question, because each and every aspect is covered in this question. So theoretical questions are low hanging fruits. Every year theoretical questions are asked, mainly from topics like attitude and emotional intelligence. So these are two chapters which I'll advise you to be thorough with the theory, because every year they are asking theoretical questions on that, like how to develop, how to inculcate emotional intelligence, how to change attitude, how attitudes are formed, etc. Second question is applied ethics based question. Now, gender inequality based question was asked in 2020. The most common mistake that people will do in this question is that they'll write a generic answer. They'll write answer that has a feel and look of GS1 and GS2 rather than GS4. This question could have been asked even in GS1. This question could have been asked in GS4 as well, GS2 as well. Why this question has been asked in GS4 is that examiner wants you to write ethical dimensions in this question and not generic dimensions. This is the most important part of applied ethics questions, which I think last year were 7 or 8 out of 13. So you have to write ethical dimensions. Any answer in ethics which is not dealing with ethical dimensions won't get more than 3 marks out of 10. Trust me. So this is the only tricky part of this question. Now, how to develop ethical dimensions? So remember the syllabus. Remember the chronology of the syllabus topics and use the syllabus to your advantage in your applied ethics answers. So firstly, let's follow the structure. So the keyword here is gender inequality. So I have defined gender inequality here. Even the definition of gender inequality cannot be generic. You have to involve ethics keywords in this answer, even in the definition. So I have written about work culture, governance, leadership. These, you can find these 3 words in the ethics syllabus itself. I have done nothing. I have just written what I wanted to write regarding gender inequality, and then I have linked the definition with syllabus. So these 3 keywords, that is work culture, governance, and leadership, what they are doing here is they are giving the ethical tinge to my answer. My answer is not generic, my answer is ethics based if I am writing keywords from the syllabus itself. So this is the first learning for you with respect to answering applied ethics questions, that you cannot write generic answer, you have to write ethics based answer, and you have to link your answers with syllabus. Now second is making points. How do you make points? See, main factors of gender inequality. Anybody can write answer on this, even if somebody has not read ethics. For example, say my parents or my family, even they can tell you 10 points on why gender inequality is prevalent in the country. But then the key is to write ethics based answer. So again, use syllabus, learn the syllabus by heart. There is no second option to it. Learn it by heart and use syllabus chapters point by point. So I have made first point from attitudes chapter, that there is negative attitude and hence you have gender inequality. Then I have made point from human values and ethics interface chapter, I have used lack of value education as a reason of gender inequality. Then there are keywords like greed and desire, which Gita has talked about a lot. So I have used those keywords. I have missed writing about Mahabharat and Gita. So what better I could have done in this answer here was moral fabric of society is corrupt to the extent that greed and desire, comma, as postulated by Mahabharat and Gita. Just writing these few words will give another dimension to my answer, that not only I am writing keywords, I have linked it with religious ethics as well. And then lastly, I have written empathy, that is a keyword from emotional intelligence chapter. So I have used attitude chapter, human values chapter. I have written keywords from religious ethics, and then I have include emotional intelligence chapter as well. And the other points that you have in your mind, you can write in form of hub and spoke diagram, which I told you in the diagram slide. That other factors are corruption is in chapter 7 and 8. Then poor will on part of change agents. This is something that you can link with leadership chapter. Poor implementations of rules and regulations. Rules and regulations, if somebody is thorough with syllabus, you would know that rules and regulation is mentioned as syllabus as a separate topic. So I've again used syllabus in my diagram as well. Lack of ethical perspective in policies. This is again can be linked with chapter 7 and 8. So this is a live example in front of you, that how, despite of not knowing ethical dimensions related to gender inequality, how you can write a very good answer, a keywords based answer, just using the syllabus. Even if you have not read my book or any other book for that matter, for you can write this answer using the syllabus itself. And the last part of question, discuss the contribution of Savitribai Phule in this regard. So now this is tricky. If somebody does not know contribution, then it can become tough. But if you know, just write 2 or 3 points on her contribution, and again try to link this as well with ethics. So I have written about rights. So rights are important in ethics. Value education or education. There is a point in syllabus, role of families, society, and teachers in something like that. There is a point written in syllabus. So you can link that point with this point. So these are the ways in which you can link syllabus and write applied ethics answers. Now, this is a time for you guys to brainstorm, read this question and brainstorm the ethical dimensions related to this question. So this is like a do it yourself exercise. Take 2-3 minutes and then we will discuss this question here. I have posted certain links in the chat box. These include link to my book, My Ethics Strategy, Praful's Ethics Strategy and his notes, Abhijit's strategy. Then one of my checked answer copy in which I scored 118.5 marks. My Ethics Keyword Dictionary. It is a very short dictionary sort of thing which I made for keywords. And my examples, which the areas from which I used examples. If somebody wants to answer this question, you can unmute and answer. No one wants to try.
Sir, good morning, sir.
एक जना बोलो यार.
Sir, we can link it with some keywords of the syllabus like tolerance, compassion, and attitude towards them.
सही है. और बताओ, स्ट्रक्चर में बताओ मुझे आंसर. सिर्फ कीवर्ड्स मत बताओ, स्ट्रक्चर पूरा बताओ. मैं एस्पेक्ट्स लिख देता हूँ यहाँ पे. वो एस्पेक्ट्स आप मुझे बताओ. इसका इंट्रो क्या होगा? इसमें इंट्रो में कीवर्ड कौन सा है जिसको डिफाइन करोगे? कोई करंट रिलेटेड बैकग्राउंड है क्या इसमें जो मेंशन कर सकते हैं? फिर सिलेबस से पॉइंट्स आएंगे, तो वो 5 पॉइंट्स अगर हमें लिखने हैं तो मुझे 5 अलग अलग चैप्टर से पॉइंट्स चाहिए इसमें. फिर फोर्थ एस्पेक्ट हो गया कि तुम्हारे एग्जांपल्स क्या होंगे इसमें, डायग्राम क्या बनाओगे, और कंक्लूजन क्या होगा.
Students, please raise your hand. Sir will say the name and then you will answer. Okay, so that decorum is maintained. Thank you.
बताओ आंसर, कोई बताओ.
First, we will talk about the refuge crisis of Rohingyas, and we can also mention about what happened in Ukraine, that Poland and all other countries were initially refusing to take in.
Okay.
Then we'll talk about the ethical dimensions which are violated, like secularism and non-partisanship. Then there's no empathy towards the section who's already suffering.
Yes.
Then we can also talk about Kant's categorical imperative when he said that human should not be used as a means.
Yes.
And human dignity is also a kind of a categorical imperative.
Yes.
And it has been violated. And then examples I have mentioned, say in diagram part, we can draw a circular diagram showing that how if refugees are not accepted, then they get into crime and all those things. Their education is also suffered due to this. And then we will conclude
chronological block
about
diagram ना, ऐसा वाला chronological block diagram.
हाँ सर.
ठीक है, बढ़िया.
और फिर कंक्लूजन में सर वी कैन मेंशन अबाउट एसडीजीज एंड, और या तो फिर कोई वैल्यू भी मेंशन कर सकते हैं.
सही. हाँ, कंक्लूजन तो वेरी करेगा इसका. कोई सा भी वैल्यू लिख सकते हो, कोई कोट लिखना चाहते हो तो कोट लिख सकते हो. ठीक है, बढ़िया आंसर.
थैंक यू सर.
मैं जो इसमें मेन कीवर्ड्स लिखूंगा, तो इस आंसर में सबसे पहला मेरा होगा यूटिलिटेरियनिज्म का. यूटिलिटेरियनिज्म या कम्युनिटेरियनिज्म के हमें लार्जर गुड देखना है और हमें कम्युनिटेरियन गुड देखना है, ना कि इंडिविजुअल कंट्रीज को सिर्फ इंडिविजुअलिज्म में अपना गुड नहीं देखना चाहिए. दे हैव टू बी कंसर्न्ड अबाउट द गुड ऑफ एंटायर कम्युनिटी एंड वर्ल्ड एज लार्ज. देन दूसरा एक टॉलरेंस का एग्जांपल बोला था अभी किसी ने. दैट इज अ वेरी गुड कीवर्ड टू राइट इन दिस क्वेश्चन. देन आई विल आल्सो राइट अबाउट attitude, which is already told by somebody here. So attitude is a good keyword to use in this question. One keyword which everyone missed here is Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. So if you are writing this from Indian perspective, so Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam means that world is a large family. Entire world is a family. So this is a keyword which is very important, and it can be used in this question. So there are 4 different keywords in 4 different points, and that is more than enough.
So can we also add trusteeship doctrine, one? And second one, how this will lead to a collective moral dissonance of the collective society, because if you are a democratic country, one of the reasons people even protest and come on the roads in favor of refugees is because there is a conscience sort of dissonance, moral dissonance, right? So trusteeship doctrine and the conscience dissonance.
Yes, both can be used.
Sir, can we add principle of non-refoulement? Non-refoulement, that we should not send back the refugees where they are getting
Yes.
persecuted again.
Yes, it is a keyword that is mentioned time and again with this refugee crisis. So of course you can use that in ethics as well. One thing that maybe we have missed in this question is that examine the statement with reference to ethical dimension being violated by the nation claiming to be democratic with an open society. So there should be at least one point in your answer which deals with democratic aspects of an open society as well. So even if we have written this like utilitarianism, communitarianism, tolerance, or conscience, etc., these are all principles of democracy as such. But then we have not explicitly anywhere written about democracy of an open society. So that is also one point that you should mention in this question.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So should we also write the other side of it, that national integrity, and suppose Rohingya have inclusion of terrorist threat to the country, that side of story, ethical national integrity and national interest is also part of ethics. ये नहीं लिखना है.
मत लिखो, इसमें मत लिखो.
हाँ जी.
वो चीज है, वो वैलिड है, लेकिन वो इस क्वेश्चन में फिट नहीं होगी. गलत चला जाएगा क्वेश्चन.
Okay, sir.
Sir,
Yes.
Sir, as they are claiming that they are democratic, so sir, we can mention about the keyword of syllabus like philosophical basis of governance.
लिंक करो से. मेंशन तो हम कुछ भी कर सकते हैं, उसको आंसर से लिंक करके बताओ.
Means somehow their governance are not ethical. That's why they are persecuting or violating the human rights of their people.
ठीक है. देखो लिंक करना है. जो भी व्यू लिखा है, whatever view you are writing, the purpose of writing keyword is that it should be cohesive with that view. Just writing the keyword won't do any good to you. You have to link it with. If you are able to link it with your answer, then very good.
सर तो जो कंक्लूजन रहेगा, शुड वी सपोर्ट दैट स्टेटमेंट, क्योंकि हमारी नेशन पॉलिसी के तो अगेंस्ट है कि बाकी रोहिंग्या या इन सबको सिटीजनशिप देना या सपोर्ट करना. तो कंक्लूजन में शुड वी सपोर्ट दिस स्टेटमेंट और डिनाई करना है? क्या
इसमें सपोर्ट करना है रिफ्यूजी क्राइसिस
में लास्ट में. हाँ, तो मतलब उनको क्या उनको देना चाहिए शेल्टर की नहीं देना चाहिए? इसमें कंक्लूजन में क्या लिखेंगे?
अब इसमें जनरल रिफ्यूजीज बोला है, इसमें किसी पर्टिकुलर कंट्री का या पर्टिकुलर कुछ तो नहीं बोला है इसमें कि तुम रोहिंग्या का ही तो नहीं लिखा है इसमें. अगर एथिक्स में रोहिंग्या का आता है क्वेश्चन तो तुम दोनों व्यूज लिखोगे, प्रो एंड कॉन्स. ठीक है. इसमें जेनरिक रेफ्यूजीज बोला है, तो क्लाइमेट रेफ्यूजीज भी होते हैं, वॉर रेफ्यूजीज होते हैं, अलग अलग तरीके के रेफ्यूजीज होते हैं. तो ये आंसर जेनरिक रहेगा. इसमें अपोज करने का
गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसी सीए और एनआरसी जो है उसमें मेंशन कर सकते हैं कि ना करें?
नहीं, ये एथिक्स का पेपर है, जीएस2 नहीं है. इसको जीएस2 का आंसर मत बनाओ.
थैंक यू सर.
नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन. हाँ बोलो.
Sir, you have mentioned the introduction and current background separately. Can we write current background directly in the introduction, like British deporting refugees to Rwanda, like that?
Yeah, in ethics generally what we do in introduction is define a keyword. So if you are not able to identify a keyword in question, then if it is from current, like this question is from current, then you can write current in intro itself.
Okay, sir. Fine. Thank you.
So I'll take next question now and then we'll discuss again. Now this is a quote based question. Okay, it is given in form of a quote, but then it is not entirely quote based question. There are some questions like be the change you want to see. This is a quote based question, entirely a quote based question. But this question, which is given in form of quote, but entirely, it is not necessary to treat it as such as a quote based question. Keep your mind open. You will find a link of this quote with the syllabus itself. So a system of morality which is based on relative emotional values is a mere illusion and a thoroughly vulgar conception which has nothing sound in it and nothing true. ठीक है, अब ये कोट हो गई. तो जो थिंकर है, इन द कोट बेस्ड क्वेश्चन व्हाट जनरली वी डू इज we identify the thinker if it is not already mentioned. If thinker we have identified, then write one line or two line with respect to that thinker. Do not miss out on that, but then do not keep writing about that thinker and that quote in entire answer. So up to the introduction only, just mention about any other quote which you know with respect to this thinker, as Praful mentioned in his strategy, or write about this thinker. After that, nowhere in my answer I have written about this thinker or the quote as such. This is the application part of this question. Entire answer is application based and not quote based. Okay, so here what I was trying to say, that this is not entirely a quote based question, is that it is somewhere dealing with absolute morality versus relative morality. A system of morality which is based on relative emotional values, that is relative morality, is a vulgar conception and it has nothing sound in it and nothing true. So basically, in my view, what this question is trying to ask you is which concept is better, uh, relative morality or absolute morality. So this is my view. Now you can have a different view because it is of course a quote based question after all and a view based question. So it can mean differently to different people. But then to me, it seems like a question that is trying to ask your views regarding which is good, relative or absolute. So now there are two parts of this question after that, where a statement is true, like where we can say that relative morality is completely bad, where that is where we are trying to say that only absolute morality is good. So when we talk about countering terrorism, we cannot take into account relative emotional values, as any sort of terrorism for any reason is immoral. Now this is example that I have used to justify my view. This is my view and this is my example. Similarly, in sphere of public services, corruption can be tackled only by fixing accountability. The same cannot be done if relative emotional values are considered. So again, linking with the syllabus, chapter 6 and chapter 7 of the syllabus, that is corruption. One more thing which I forgot mentioning is that in quote-based questions, generally you are asked this, what it means to you. So if you are writing 2 points, what it means to you, write 1 point from the dimension of administration, because you are aspiring bureaucrat, you are writing exam of that. So 1 point should be related to bureaucracy, what it means to you as a aspiring bureaucrat or a bureaucrat. And second point is general or current affair related. So here my first point is current affair related and my second point is related to bureaucracy. And similarly, I have taken the view where a statement is false, that where relative morality comes into play. For example, even though murder is illegal, killing a terrorist is not only within spheres of law but also ethics. So here you cannot say that each murder is illegal or unethical. So if you say so, that is absolute morality would say so, that each murder is illegal or unethical. then even killing a terrorist would become unethical. So hence I took two views in this question. If there are any other view which anybody wants to discuss, you can unmute and discuss. And this is the Venn diagram, that absolute values plus relative values, and the common part of it is best of both. Any other view which you want to discuss?
So I just had a question. Would it help to maybe add examples on the Venn diagram just briefly? Would that also help? Like, where is it not intersecting? Should we
Yes.
mention that this is not helpful because it's not intersecting? And the best of the both may hum example de de. Would that help, or would that be
It
wasteful?
will help. It will help definitely, but it will take time.
Hanji, time लगेगा.
So you have to answer all these things in 7 minutes.
जी, जी.
तो
ठीक.
टाइम बहुत लग जाएगा तो गड़बड़ हो जाएगी आगे.
ठीक, ठीक. Thank you.
कोई डाउट इस क्वेश्चन पे? और
Excuse me, I had. Excuse me, sir.
yes,
Sir, when they ask us questions like, "What does this quote mean to you?"
yes.
So, do they expect a personal response that what it means to me, or we can write general things which are out there, not general. I mean in GS terms, but like just a reference that I can give that this is this.
So there are three aspects, as I've already told. First is that you can write a GS based answer in this. Second point, you can write GS or current based answer, and third is bureaucracy based. So these are the three aspects which you should write when a question is asked what this quote means to you.
Okay. Okay.
कोई डाउट या नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन ले? चलो. Okay. Hatred is destructive of a person's wisdom and conscience that can poison a nation's spirit. Do you agree with this view? Justify your answer. I specifically took this question because it is also a kind of question which UPSC is asking again and again. These are chronology based questions, that firstly this will happen, then this will happen, then this will happen. Another example of such question was asked in 2019 or 20 about righteousness in heart, then righteousness in mind, then individual, then nation, and then world. You can find that question. You can just Google and you will get that question. So UPSC is asking such questions that this will lead to this and this will lead to this. So the best way to answer such question is in this flow only. First discuss about the first aspect, then second aspect, then third. So for example, in this question is, hatred is destructive of a person's wisdom and conscience. So firstly, I'll discuss about how hatred destructs wisdom and conscience in the first aspect. Then in the second aspect, they are talking about that nation's spirit. So firstly, hatred has destructed a person's wisdom and conscience. Then hatred would destruct wisdom and conscience of a group of persons, and then after those group of persons will destruct the wisdom and conscience of entire nation. So this is the flow that I have taken in this question. After that, it becomes very easy to answer. Just remember the answer structure which we have been discussing in the previous questions. For example, in this question, keyword is hatred, and hatred has been asked at least twice by UPSC. Just like trust and trustworthiness has been asked at least thrice, hatred has been asked twice. So these are some favorite areas of UPSC these days. They are asking such questions. So define hatred. Now, while defining hatred, I have written about Buddhism, because in Buddhism, hatred has been defined very well. I have written about akusal kam, which is again a concept related to Buddhism, and I have linked it with question that how this destructs person's wisdom and conscience. And after that, I have started the main part of the answer. I agree with the view that hatred destroys individuals' wisdom and conscience and poisons nation's spirit. This is true as, and after that, I have discussed the chronology. One important aspect here is I have written the answer in first person. So if they are asking justify your answer, do you agree? So yes, I agree. As simple as that. Do not overthink on that. If they are asking, do you agree? Write your view. Yes, I agree. Write in first person. So this is true as hate towards someone leads to negative mindset. Hate forces one to overlook conscience. So here I have discussed the first aspect, like how hatred destroys one's wisdom and conscience. And after that, I have written point on as nation is nothing but sum of individuals, hatred at individual level can manipulate thought process of entire nation. Further, hatred drives hatred, and hence individual hatred spreads like wildfire and poisons nation, spirit of nation. And then I have written example. See how I told you in the previous slides that I used to write a lot on cricket. So I made an example from cricket and current affairs itself. Who are aware of this may know, may appreciate that a recent tour of New Zealand to Pakistan was cancelled because of last minute hoax, and then Pakistan blamed India and BCCI. Like for every other thing, they blame us. They blamed us for this as well. So I have just used this example in form of the in this question to fit in this question. Like it is hatred of Pakistan that their wisdom and conscience has been destroyed to such level that their nation's spirit is poisoned, and they blame us for each and everything that happens in their country. So this is example from current affairs. Now perhaps I have missed another example which I should have written in this question, that is from bureaucratic area. So any question where you are asked to justify your answer, try to write both views, current affair or GS view, as well as one example from bureaucratic area. This is a simple diagram, like hatred of individual, then hatred drives hatred. So this person is continuously pursuing hate, and then this destroys entire nation's spirit. If there is any doubt in this question, you can ask.
Sir, this is a very extreme statement, but if there is a more balanced statement, like pen is mightier than the sword, then we will obviously write both sides of the both sides. Because since this is a very extreme statement, that hence we have taken one extreme side and we are elaborating on that only, right?
Yes. Because hatred in itself is a negative emotion, and seldom it will happen that a good will come out of hatred. So there is no point trying to write the other side of view in this question, because then it will become very dicey for you to handle the same.
Exactly. Okay, thank you.
कोई doubt? नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन, ये बहुत टफ क्वेश्चन था, मैं इसका सोर्स हाँ
Sir, actually I am unable to understand the meaning of nation's spirit.
नेशंस स्पिरिट यार गूगल कर लो. नेशंस स्पिरिट क्या होता है यार? इंडिविजुअल की स्पिरिट होती है और एक नेशन के एक जैसे अंतरात्मा कह लो कि उसकी अंतरात्मा ही पूरी खराब हो गई है, वो होता है नेशंस स्पिरिट.
Sir?
हाँ.
Sir, in this question, can we also use like views of others? Like recently there was this article about Sir Syed Ahmad Khan and Maulana Azad's view, like in Islam, this related to the killings, that we should tackle hatred with rationality, and how Sir Syed Ahmad
Yes, you can write about in the conclusion. It will be a very good conclusion if you can, write views how to counter hatred, to prevent one's spirit and conscience from getting poisoned. So you can write their views in conclusion.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
So just one more thing. So can we write it like nation spirit comprises of values like tolerance, empathy, peace, and then we define these and give examples like Sri Lankan ethnic conflict can lead to instability because of hatred towards their own citizens, then apartheid regime, and then Osama bin Laden towards hatred towards America. So something like that can be done.
अगर नेशन स्पिरिट को तुम 3 चीजों में डिफाइन कर रहे हो तो जो रेस्ट ऑफ द आंसर है वो उससे लिंक होना चाहिए. एस्पेक्ट तुम कुछ भी ले सकते हो. नेशन स्पिरिट का तुमने क्या बोला था एग्जांपल 3? टॉलरेंस,
एम्पैथी, पीस एंड कंपैशन.
टॉलरेंस, एम्पैथी, पीस और कंपैशन अगर बोल रहे हो तो देन यू हैव टू लिंक द स्टेटमेंट विद दीज 4, like how hatred will destroy wisdom and conscience, which will further destroy tolerance, empathy, peace, and whatever was the fourth. So if you are not addressing the statement, then there won't be no point dividing nation's spirit into 4 parts.
Okay, thanks sir.
चलो नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन लेते हैं. ये बहुत टफ क्वेश्चन था. इसका एक सोर्स था, कोई एक आर्टिकल आया था. अगर तुम ये कोट एग्जैक्टली कॉपी पेस्ट करोगे गूगल पे तो तुमको एक आर्टिकल मिलेगा. उसमें कोई डिस्कशन चल रहा था आईआर वगैरह का, और उस मीटिंग में, इन दैट पर्टिकुलर मीटिंग, दिस स्टेटमेंट वाज गिवन बाय सम पैनलिस्ट. The will to power exists, but it can be tamed and guided by rationality and principles of moral duty. And UPSC picked up the same statement from that and asked in context of international relations. So it is tough to understand, but then if you try to identify the keyword and break it and write in form of examples, then it will become easy to handle. So the introduction, basically I have copy pasted from that article. No shame in admitting that, because this is something that the question was picked up from there only, so I have copy pasted that gist in my introduction from that article only. And these are important because I have explained the statement in form of examples. Like recent takeover of Afghanistan by Taliban is prime example of will to power. Okay, so they had the will to power, they wanted to come into power, so that is why they took over Afghanistan. Even though Taliban government full of UN listed terrorists backed by Pakistan poses regional and global threat, the same can be tamed and guided through rational means of dialogue and ceaseless diplomacy. So the will to power exists, but then it can be guided by rationality and principles of moral duty. So here I have written about rationality, and that rationality in form of dialogue, rationality in form of diplomacy. And if the dialogue does not help, then rationality would means using other means as well. Here I have written about principles of moral duty. Similarly, principles of moral duty would tell that world should come forward for Afghan humanitarian aid. Even India has supplied huge chunks of humanitarian aid to Afghanistan. This aid, if used ethically, can tame and guide Taliban's will to power. Because at the end of the day, what they are saying is that we have come here for the people. The previous rule was despotic, it was American based, it was not Afghan based. We are here to serve the country. And if you are giving humanitarian aid, and if that aid does good to Afghanistan, then Taliban's will to power can be guided and tamed, if they are true to their own words that they are here for people. Similarly, I have used example of China as well. Another example is how India tamed and guided China's expansionist policy by using rationality in form of trade and economic embargo. This happened in wake of Galwan Valley incident, and principles of moral duty by standing with its own soldiers, even though Chinese government tried to cover up its losses in Galwan Valley. So tough question to handle, but then on basis of examples you can handle it easily. And I have written a chronological diagram. I've drawn a chronological diagram after that. Is there international conflict? Rationality and morals are used or not? If used, then can tame and guide threat and will to power. Another aspect you can open it here. If no, then the will to power will go out of hands, and rationality and morality, even if used later on, won't do much. So any doubts in this question you can ask me. No doubts?
Sir?
So can you please elaborate a little bit on understanding the question? I haven't followed the question exactly.
यार देखो, ये कह रहा है सब में एक पावर की विल होती है, तो उनको पावर में आना है या उनको पावर चाहिए. ह्यूमन टेंडेंसी है, नेचुरल ह्यूमन टेंडेंसी है कि सबको पावर चाहिए होती है, पावर अच्छी लगती है. तो वो जो विल है वो सही है अपनी जगह, सबको पावर पसंद है, लेकिन वो ओवर द टॉप ना हो जाए, तो उसको रेशनैलिटी और मॉरल प्रिंसिपल्स के थ्रू टेम करना होता है. अब इस स्टेटमेंट को तुमने इंटरनेशनल रिलेशन के कंटेक्स्ट में एक्सप्लेन करना था. ठीक है,
ओके.
एग्जाम्पल के बेस पे मैंने यही बताया कि तालिबान की विल टू पावर जो है वो सीजलेस है. वो चाहे तो वो पूरा पाकिस्तान भी ले ले, वो चाहे तो ईरान इराक भी ले ले, उनको सब चाहिए. लेकिन वो जो विल टू पावर है उसको अगर रेशनल मींस और मॉरल ड्यूटी से आप टेम करना चाहो तो कर सकते हो. सिमिलरली चाइना एक एक्सपेंशनिस्ट कंट्री है, उसको ताइवान भी चाहिए, उसको लद्दाख भी चाहिए, उसको अरुणाचल भी चाहिए, वो उसकी विल टू पावर है. लेकिन अगर आप रेशनल मींस यूज करो, जैसे इंडिया ने करे थे, उस पर सैंक्शन लगा दिए थे, मतलब सैंक्शन तो वर्ड नहीं है, सैंक्शन तो यूएस यूज करता है, तो हमने उससे ट्रेड कम कर दी थी, तो वो अपने आप बैक ट्रैक हो गया था. फिर मॉरल ड्यूटी हमने कैसे यूज करी कि हमारे जो सोल्जर्स शहीद हुए थे तो हम उनके साथ स्टैंड हुए थे. हमने ओपन में बोला था कि हाँ हमारे इतने सोल्जर जो हैं शहीद हुए. उन्होंने नहीं करा था चाइना ने. तो वहां पे भी उसकी जो विल टू पावर है उसकी अपनी खुद की कंट्री में, आर्मी में उसको सपोर्ट नहीं मिला था. ठीक है.
मुझे एक कंफ्यूजन हो रहा है छोटा सा, that whether this question is saying is guided by rationality and principle of moral duty, that is whether I'm self-checking myself or somebody else is making rational decisions which is taming my power and someone else is showing the moral duty.
मैंने देखो वो व्यू लिया है कि someone else कर रहा है. ठीक है, अब ये व्यू जो तुमने बताया वो भी ले सकते हैं.
अच्छा,
हाँ वो भी ले सकते हैं.
Sir, I understood the examples and conclusion, but like suppose this question comes in examination and the introduction that you mentioned is like very like as you mentioned it was there in an article.
It is not necessary to mention.
So,
I am writing a book, so I have to give proper introduction.
so but what would be an alternate introduction like in this question?
So,
suppose.
Okay, so IR is in news. Sorry, IR is in syllabus. So
Yes, sir.
you would have read some or other theory on IR, or you can mention that. Matlab some or other content you must have read for IR in ethics.
Like
So
we can mention a very small introduction, simplistic introduction rather
yes,
than
yes, yes.
very technical.
You can define rationality, or you can define moral duty, or you can focus on power as well. There are 3 keywords: power, rationality, and moral duty. You can focus on either of them.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, in this question, like either in introduction or conclusion, can we use related to UN Charter, like Harry Truman said that we have to recognize that no matter how great our strength, no nation can give themselves the right to do as they please, and use it in this that at post World War II, the Allied powers, they could have gone ahead and taken some steps which were against rationality and moral duty, the way was done in Treaty of Versailles, and start from there.
बहुत बढ़िया है। तुम्हारा ऑप्शनल क्या है?
So medical science.
तुमको इसका नॉलेज कैसे है इतना?
सर ये एक द इंडिया वे बुक में या शशि थरूर सर की बुक में था, तो उससे लिखा।
बढ़िया, बहुत बढ़िया, यूज कर सकते
हैं। ओके सर, थैंक यू सर।
Sir, one last
can we
thing.
use
बोलो।
sir, can we the thing that the UN body and international bodies which work as checks and balances on this thing that जो लोगों का will है for the power, it should be controlled. क्या हम ऐसे लिख सकते हैं?
हाँ, लिख सकते हैं।
Sir, one last thing. Sir, the example when India liberated Bangladesh, we could have the will to power. We could have captured Kashmir, but the rationality and the moral duty and the principles that India followed did not allow us to overpower Kashmir.
Yes.
So is this a good example of this?
Yes,
that
it is a very
self-driven
rationality and moral duty है जो हमने अपनी will to power को tame करा। बहुत बढ़िया। हाँ, बढ़िया।
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So one question regarding this, sir. Can sir we link it with the human aspects? Like sir, in human being, every has a one has a desire to conquer everything. Likewise, the country have a goal to conquer or take in power the neighboring countries. If we take the context of ourselves, if we control ourselves and develop friendly relationship with people, if the same principle is followed by country, it will help the country in the larger good.
सही है। तुम भी वही व्यू ले रहे हो जो अभी डिस्कस हुआ कि इंटरनली मतलब हम खुद टेम कर रहे हैं अपनी विल।
Sir, I would like to add it with the example of Krishna and Arjuna. So it will be okay that how the Krishna guided him to not to go for that path to control whole rather than to go for the thing which is sorry, Duryodhana and Duryodhana stories. That is Duryodhana stories. That he was desiring to conquer everything, but that destroyed himself. His whole kingdom is destroyed. Can you link to that?
ऐसे हिटलर का लिख सकते हो, उसके विल टू पावर जो थी वो सीजलेस थी, उसने खुद को गाइड नहीं करा
तो डिस्ट्रॉय हो गया।
लास्ट में अशोक का एग्जांपल लिख सकते हो कि इनिशियली उनकी विल टू पावर थी जो सीजलेस थी, लेकिन फिर मोरल ड्यूटी का जब उनको हुआ तो उन्होंने वो विल टू पावर को टेम कर लिया।
हाँ, तो ये सर इंट्रो में देना बेटर रहेगा या कंक्लूजन टाइप के चीजों में ये बेटर रहेगा?
कंक्लूजन में या एग्जांपल्स में?
सर, हम इलेक्शन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया के मॉडल कोड ऑफ कंडक्ट से स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं क्या कि पॉलिटिकल पावर में इलिजिटिमेट मींस यूज नहीं करने चाहिए टू गेट पावर टू गेट।
बस क्वेश्चन से लिंक कर पा रहे हो ना, तो ठीक है, लिख सकते। ये किसी के यहाँ टीवी चल रहा है यार, म्यूट कर लो तुम, ये तो टीवी बंद कर लो।
थैंक यू।
नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन लेते हैं। ये लास्ट क्वेश्चन है और इसमें फिर तुम्हें ब्रेनस्टॉर्म करना है, ठीक है? फिर हम डिस्कस करेंगे इसे। मैं इसका स्ट्रक्चर एक बता देता हूं, चलो। वी कैन नेवर ऑब्टेन पीस इन आउटर वर्ल्ड। स्क्रीन दिख रही है ना?
यस सर, दिख रही है। क्वेश्चन
दिख रही है।
2021। यस।
हाँ, so we can never obtain peace in outer world until and unless we obtain peace within ourselves. तो ये वो quote based question है which I told that there are some questions like if this happens then this will happen. So peace within ourselves, then peace in outer world. So ये theme है। तो पहले तुम इसको डिस्कस कर सकते हो, फिर इसको, लेकिन दोनों को साथ लेके चलो। तो एक पॉइंट इसका लिखो, फिर एक्सप्लेन करो कि आउटर वर्ल्ड में पीस कैसे हो जाएगा। फिर एक और अगला एग्जांपल लो, उसमें एक्सप्लेन करो कि पीस विद इन आवरसेल्फ और वो आउटर वर्ल्ड में पीस कैसे हो जाएगा। एग्जाम्पल बेस्ड रखना है क्वेश्चन को। इसमें पीस तुम्हारा कीवर्ड है, इसको इंट्रो में मेंशन कर सकते हैं, डिफाइन करना है। अगर दलाई लामा के बारे में तुमको पता है तो इंट्रो में उनके बारे में लिख सकते हैं। ठीक है, पॉइंट्स मैंने तुम्हें बता दिया किस थीम पे बनाने हैं। एग्जाम्पल बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, तो अब एग्जाम्पल पीस विद इन आवर सेल्फ, देन पीस इन आउटर वर्ल्ड। अब एग्जाम्पल इसमें एक तो जीएस हो गया, एक तुम आईआर का एग्जाम्पल डाल सकते हो, एक एग्जाम्पल ब्यूरोक्रेसी से जरूर लेना। इसमें आउटर वर्ल्ड को जरूरी नहीं है कि तुम सिर्फ वर्ल्ड के रिस्पेक्ट में देख रहे हो। आउटर वर्ल्ड मतलब ये भी हो गया कि अगर एक ब्यूरोक्रेट अंदर से अगर पीसफुल है तो उसका जो वर्क स्पेस है, जो उसकी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है, वहां पे भी पीस का एक माहौल होगा, तो वो एग्जाम्पल भी लिखना है। और एक डायग्राम चाहिए और एक फिर लास्ट में कंक्लूजन। ये इसका स्ट्रक्चर है। मुझे बस अब आप लोग इसके पॉइंट्स और एग्जाम्पल बताओ जिसमें कीवर्ड्स आने चाहिए सिलेबस के। एथिक्स का आंसर दिखना चाहिए।
एक्सक्यूज मी सर। सर यहाँ पे जो पीस का मीनिंग है वो बाय वर्ड लेना है या इसको थोड़ा एनलार्ज भी कर सकते हैं? जैसा पीस मीन्स if we eliminate patriarchy at home, then we can eliminate it society level as well.
यार ऐसे तो फिर कुछ भी लिख देंगे हम, पीस पे ही रहो।
बाय वर्ड ही लेना है क्या?
हाँ मेरे हिसाब से, मतलब थोड़ा थोड़ा 19-20 हो सकता है, लेकिन पीस और पेट्रियार्की में तो बहुत डिफरेंस हो गया।
ओके।
पीस को you can link with brotherhood, you can link with say unity, you can link peace with tolerance, but then patriarchy is something different.
Okay, thank you.
Excuse me, sir.
Can I answer this question?
Yes.
So coming to the points, we can discuss about tolerance, empathy, compassion, and tolerance, empathy, compassion, attitude.
लिंक करके बताओ मुझे, कैसे इसमें लिंक करोगे?
Am I audible, sir?
एक मिनट, एक को आंसर करने दो।
So coming to tolerance, suppose I mean, if we are tolerant towards other faiths and religions, then there will be peace in the outer world. And tolerance is the intrinsic value of a human being, right?
Okay.
And the same goes with empathy and compassion.
नहीं, इनके अलग एग्जांपल बताओ। ऐसे ही सेम तो नहीं लिख सकते ना बार बार। एक पॉइंट टॉलरेंस का हो गया तुम्हारा, 4 पॉइंट बनाने तुम्हें।
Yes, sir. For empathy and compassion, I mean, we'll be defining those virtues, both empathy and compassion initially, and we will try to give a couple of examples.
नहीं, डिफाइन नहीं करना है। डिफाइन जो तुम्हारे पॉइंट्स अगर होते हैं, these are the points that you are writing. This is not a part of question itself, so you need not define those. This is a keyword that you are mentioning, so just mention it as a passing reference. No need to define, just link it with peace. Peace in inner world to outer world.
Okay, sir.
Sir, can we start with it with the teleological ethics, like consequential ethics? If one country supports the disarmament, then at individual level, then the rest of the countries will follow it, and consequentially the peace will be established. Like this introduction, can we start?
कर सकते हो, लेकिन अब recent context देखो, यूक्रेन ने डिसआर्मेमेंट करा तो उसका क्या हाल हुआ है?
राइट सर, राइट।
तो करंट कंटेक्स्ट से तो एकदम अपोजिट है। तो अगर ऐसा एग्जांपल लिखते हो कभी, तो यूज मे वर्ड यूज करना, कैन वो डेफिनेटली मत बोलना। पॉसिबिलिटी की वो रखना टोन कि if a country disarms itself, then it may happen that its enemy neighbor may also disarm itself in near future. पॉसिबिलिटी का बोल सकते हैं।
Sir, can we link with emotional intelligence, sir?
बताओ कैसे?
सर जैसे कि हम लोग के इनर सेल्फ को गाइड करने के लिए हमारा ये इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। वैसे इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस के पैरामीटर जैसे कि सेल्फ अवेयरनेस, सिंपैथी हो गया, मोटिवेशन हो गया, सेल्फ रेगुलेशन, सोशल स्किल। हम सेल्फ अवेयरनेस में ये कहेंगे कि अगर हम खुद सेल्फ अवेयर है अपने एनवायरनमेंट और लाइक वाइज अगर अपने कंट्री के सराउंडिंग के एनवायरनमेंट से सेल्फ अवेयर है, जैसे कि नेपाल फॉर लाइक चाइना से थोड़ा इन्फ्लुएंस हो गया, तो हम लोग अवेयर है कि हमारे नेबर्स किससे इन्फ्लुएंस हो रहे हैं। फिर इम्पैथी जैसे कि मान लीजिए भूटान है, उसको किसी चीज़ की जरूरत है और उसके प्रॉब्लम को हम समझ रहे हैं, उसको फूड का सप्लाई कर रहे हैं, फूड ग्रेन की सप्लाई कर रहे हैं, वो इम्पैथी हो गया। मोटिवेशन इन सेंस की मतलब कि हम लोग अपने आप के पास के नेबरहुड को मोटिवेट कर रहे हैं कि टू डेवलप।
रुको, पूरा EI बेस्ड आंसर मत लिखो।
ओके,
तुमने तो गोलमैन का मॉडल जो है वो एग्जांपल से एक्सप्लेन कर दिया पूरा।
हाँ हाँ हाँ, मैंने वो
नहीं तो एक एस्पेक्ट लो ना बस, ताकि सिलेबस के बाकी एस्पेक्ट्स भी कवर हो। ये EI का क्वेश्चन तो नहीं है, ये कोट बेस्ड क्वेश्चन है जिसमें EI को तुम कीवर्ड यूज करना चाह रहे हो गोलमैन को, तो सिर्फ सेल्फ अवेयरनेस पे रिस्ट्रिक्ट रहो, बाकी मत लो। ये एग्जांपल ठीक है तुम्हारा।
Is this question related to ethics in private and public relations? यूज कर सकते हैं क्या प्राइवेट और पब्लिक में?
एथिक्स इन प्राइवेट, एथिक्स इन पब्लिक लाइफ।
हाँ, तो प्राइवेट में जैसे इफेक्ट कर रहा है, तो जैसे टॉलरेंस लिखा या वो जो मेडिटेशन हो गया, वो कैसे काम बनाता है, तो हमारे पब्लिक स्पेस में वो रिफ्लेक्ट होता है।
सही है। जो मैंने ब्यूरोक्रेसी का बोला था लिखने को, उसमें यही आएगा कि अगर मैं एथिकल हूँ अपनी प्राइवेट लाइफ में, तो हायर चांसेस हैं, जरूरी नहीं है लेकिन बहुत हायर चांसेस है कि मैं अपने ब्यूरोक्रेटिक या पब्लिक लाइफ में भी एथिकल होऊंगा। तो अगर मेरे अंदर पीस है तो मेरे वर्क स्पेस में, मतलब आउटर वर्ल्ड में भी मैं पीस रिफ्लेक्ट करूंगा।
तो सर जैसे आउटर वर्ल्ड है, उसके एग्जांपल के डिटर्मिनेंट क्या क्या होंगे? जैसे फैमिली हो गया, रिलीजन हो गया और सोशल रिलेशनशिप हो गया, इन्हीं सब पे वो करना है। अलग फैमिली में कैसे पीस आएगी?
नहीं, एक तो देखो मैंने बताया तुम्हें IR हो गया, IR का तो तुम समझ में आ गया, यहाँ पे IR इसमें हो गया। ब्यूरोक्रेसी का तुम्हें आ गया। अब एक कोई GS
सर
एक
सर
जने
हम
का
यहाँ पे एम्पैथी में और
हाँ,
एटीट्यूड में नक्सलवाद के एग्जांपल डाल सकते हैं?
बताओ मुझे एग्जांपल बताओ अपना।
मतलब सर अगर हमें उनके प्रति मतलब एम्पैथी, गवर्नमेंट है या ब्यूरोक्रेसी है, वो ऐसा एटीट्यूड दिखाए, एम्पैथी दिखाए, तो ये कम हो सकता है।
हाँ, लिख सकते सर। टोन इसमें यही रखना कि हो सकता है, ठीक है, और अगर का टोन रखना, क्योंकि पूरा गवर्नमेंट का भी नहीं है गलती उधर से भी है। तो एथिक्स के पेपर में ये ना हो कि तुम ब्लेम गेम पूरा गवर्नमेंट पे ही डाल दो।
नहीं सर, इस क्वेश्चन में हम पॉइंट में ऐसे लिख सकते हैं कि हमने पहले इनर पीस के बारे में बताया कि इनर पीस लीड्स टू ग्रेटर कॉन्शियस। वैसा कॉन्शियस में मैं किसी थिंकर का कोट और इसमें यूज करके हम कॉन्शियस के बारे में बता सकते हैं। एंड देन द राइट कॉन्शियस लीड्स टू राइट थॉट्स एंड एटीट्यूड, एंड देन वी हैव राइट एटीट्यूड एंड थॉट्स। तो हमारे सर इसमें एग्जांपल के तौर पे बिहेवियर में दैट रिस्पेक्ट टुवर्ड्स वुमेन एंड ओल्ड एज एंड चिल्ड्रन केयर, तो इसमें हम अपने राइट थॉट्स और एटीट्यूड में एग्जांपल्स में दे सकते हैं। एंड देन द राइट थॉट्स एंड एटीट्यूड लीड्स टू राइट एक्शंस। देन राइट एक्शंस अगर है आपके, एग्जांपल ऑफ लेसर करप्शन एंड लेसर क्राइम बिकॉज वी आर मोर अलर्ट एंड अवेयर। एंड सर इसमें हम करप्शन में हमारा एक प्रोफेशनल लाइफ में एग्जांपल हो जाएगा। एंड देन दिस लीड्स टू आपका पीस इन द आउटर वर्ल्ड, मतलब पूरे वर्ल्ड को कॉन्टेक्स्ट में लेके आई कैन से कि लेसर टेररिज्म का केस होगा। तो सर ऐसे क्रोनोलॉजिकली बना के, जैसे आपने पहले बताया था कि आपने उसी को पॉइंट्स में डिवाइड करके एग्जांपल दिए एंड देन अ डायग्राम, इसी में डायग्राम बनाया।
बढ़िया
सर मैं इसमें ना इंट्रोडक्शन में थोड़ा सा सोच रही हूँ। मैं इंट्रोडक्शन में जैसे मुझे दलाई लामा के बारे में नहीं पता, तो मैं क्या इसमें इंट्रोडक्शन में पीस को डिफाइन कर दूं कि व्हाट आई मीन विद पीस, मेरे लिए क्या मायने रखता है पीस?
यस,
ओके सर। एंड देन कंक्लूजन में सर क्या लिखना चाहिए?
ओवरऑल एक समराइज कर दो आंसर को बस।
So we can define conclusion as after all a state is a sum of individuals. So
सर इसमें वसुदेव कुटुंबकम का भी डाल सकते हैं ना, आपने बताया था।
सर हम कंक्लूजन में किसी को कोट कर सकते हैं कि as so and so said, as that thinker quoted, ऐसे करके
कोट करते हैं।
सर जीएस एग्जाम्पल पे उसका एग्जाम्पल दिया जा सकता है क्या कि जब तक वो उसको इनर पीस नहीं मिली थी तब तक वो बहुत एग्रेसिव था, उसकी वजह से पूरे इंडियन सब कॉन्टिनेंट में वॉर हो रहे थे। बट जब उसने बुद्धिस्ट प्रिंसिपल फॉलो किए, इनर पीस हुआ, तो उसकी वजह से पूरे आउटर वर्ल्ड में भी काफी एरिया में उसके धम्मा पॉलिसी से पीस पहुंचा।
बढ़िया।
इसे कंक्लूजन में डाल सकते हैं सर। इसका एग्जाम्पल एक ये भी हो सकता है जैसे रशिया और यूएस का कोल्ड वॉर के बाद जो चल रहा है, अभी यूक्रेन वॉर में वो लोग आउटर स्पेस में भी रशियन एस्ट्रोनॉट्स ने यूएस का फ्लैग हटा दिया था। तो इनर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट्स बिटवीन दीज स्टेट्स इज शोइंग इन ग्लोबल कॉमन्स आल्सो।
यार ये एग्जैक्टली लिंक नहीं हुआ है।
ओके
इसको लिंक करो, बेटर कर सकते हो यूज फिर।
Sir, can we quote Mahatma Gandhi in GS?
बिल्कुल, वो तो मेन है इसमें एथिक्स के
हर
पेपर
जगह
में।
कर रहे हैं।
उनके बिना एथिक्स का पेपर कंप्लीट ही नहीं हो सकता। इन दी एंड वही याद आते हैं क्योंकि एथिक्स के पेपर में। ठीक है,
सर इस क्वेश्चन को क्या
इनफ ब्रेनस्टॉर्मिंग हो गया इसका, मुझे लग रहा है। देखो सबसे बढ़िया पॉइंट ये था, एक तो ईआई का, सेल्फ अवेयरनेस का, क्योंकि वो डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन से लिंक हो रहा है। सेल्फ अवेयरनेस वुड लीड टू पीस विद इन आवरसेल्व्स एंड देन पीस इन आउटर वर्ल्ड। एग्जांपल लिख दो कुछ भी। फिर ये पॉइंट बहुत अच्छा था कि अगर इनर पीस है तो कॉन्शियस होगा, और उसके मेरा थॉट, बिहेवियर और एटीट्यूड। जो एटीट्यूड चैप्टर में एक थ्योरी होती है कि थॉट, एटीट्यूड कंटेंट की, कि थॉट, बिहेवियर और एटीट्यूड तीन होते हैं। अगर उनमें सिनर्जी होती है तो जैसे मेरे थॉट्स होते हैं वैसा मेरा बिहेवियर होता है। तो अगर मेरे तक वो रिफ्लेक्ट हो रहा है तो वो फिर आउटर वर्ल्ड में भी रिफ्लेक्ट होगा। तो ये पॉइंट अच्छा था। एटीट्यूड हो गया, इमोशनल इंटेलिजेंस हो गया, टॉलरेंस का एग्जांपल तो एकदम फिट हो रहा है। बाकी आपके ये सब, ये एक ब्यूरोक्रेटिक एग्जांपल मैंने बता दिया था। आईआर का एग्जांपल हो ही गया है डिस्कस। अगर दलाई लामा के बारे में नहीं पता है, लिखने का ज्यादा नहीं है, वैसे कंपैशन में काफी लोग पढ़ते हैं दलाई लामा के बारे में, तो वो उससे लिंक करके आप लिख सकते हो इसमें। अगर नहीं पता है तो फिर जनरल आप पीस का इंट्रोडक्शन इसमें दे सकते हैं। कंक्लूजन, जनरली मेरा कंक्लूजन, आप अगर मेरी बुक भी देखोगे तो 1 लाइनर 2 लाइनर कंक्लूजन होता है, एंड आई जस्ट समराइज द होल आंसर दैट आई हैव रिटन। Seldom it happens that I bring a new aspect in my conclusion in ethics paper, because time is very less. 7 minutes is a very less time for writing a ethics answer. So that is why, just to save time, I used to summarize in 1 or 2 lines whatever I have written in entire answer. But if you can recall a quote, if you can recall certain thinker which you can invoke in conclusion, then it is very good. ठीक है।